floating diplomatic nexus. Outer Concord territory. The air inside the grand chamber was recycled and sterile. Yet it hummed with the tension of 100 species who'd fought too many wars to breathe easily in one room. The ceiling stretched like a crystallized dome, refracting the starscape above, while diplomats sat in concentric rings that resembled an execution pit more than a forum. At the center, seated on a spindly chair clearly designed for someone 3 feet taller, was Ambassador Ilias Rorkteron, representative and, according to most present, a walking accident in progress. He spun a peanut between his fingers like it was a neural relay switch. The little snack clicked, rolled, and caught the reflection of distant starlight. It wasn't supposed to be there. Neither were humans, really. They'd been invited to observe, not negotiate. Opposite him loomed War Master Krolver, apex of the galaxyhfy fang of 12 stars, and devourer of the Thalnary swarm. 9 feet of obsidian-plated muscle coiled in ceremonial his 4 eyes burning amber like dying suns. His breath steamed visibly through fanged mandibles. Barely restrained under centuries of predatory discipline, Rourke's translator pinged once. A warning. Aggressive posture. Detected probable. Elias leaned back. So, he drawled, you're saying we can't use jump gates near the border because it interrupts your ancestral migration routes, even though you haven't migrated in 700 years. Krolver's claws twitched once. Correct violation of the sacred void will constitute an act of war, the translator intoned flatly. A long silence followed. Then Elias tossed the peanut that arced lazily through the air, weightless under the station's microgravity fields, spinning end over end. Click, 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 click. It bounced once on the polished obsidian table, then skittered and landed directly at the base of Krolver's clawed foot. Everything stopped. The Relari diplomat 6 seats away turned gray and slid beneath his table. The Varnic scribe emitted an ultrasonic squeal before fainting. One of the insectoid Lokari coughed up its second stomach. Krolver didn't move. Not yet. He merely looked down slowly at the peanut, then up. At the human. Elias gave a half shrug. I thought it was a gift. The War Master inhaled slowly. A sound, like a storm being pulled into a vacuum. Is this Terran humor? Krolver growled, his voice like tectonic plates grinding. Elias smiled thinly. Depends. You're planning to laugh, or are we skipping straight to genocide? The silence that followed wasn't ordinary. It throbbed, the kind of silence before orbital bombardments, the kind of silence in deep space, right before you realize the blinking red light is a targeting laser. Even the auto-recording drones paused, recalibrating their danger thresholds. Krolver rose to his full height. The chamber dimmed as he towered over the central table. Eyes locked on the Terran. Earth has offended the apex. Your species has issued a challenge. Elias blinked. Wait, what? We accept. Across the stars, hidden in Drexery war moons and buried under their deepest archives. Something ancient stirred an old tradition, thought long dead. Blood honor. Kind of war that didn't end with negotiations or treaties, only silence. The War Master turned and began to chant, low, rhythmic, hungry. Drexery across the chamber joined in, and in the control room of Earth's orbital defense net, alarms began to shriek as hundreds of Drexery vessels dropped from hyperspace into Earth's sector. Back in the chamber, Elias whispered into his cum bead, tell me you didn't just poke the apex predators of the galaxy. The sky split open. Not with thunder, not with fire, with presence. Space above Earth bloomed with Drexery dreadships, monoliths of jagged alloy and living bone. They moved in perfect silence, without flare or flourish. Their shadows blanketed the stratosphere like an executioner's hood. From the North American defense hub, General Mendez stared out the observation bay as one of the ships sizzily larger than Manhattan slowly rotated until its spinal railgun locked onto the Atlantic coastline. Is this a declaration? His aide whispered, white-knuckling the edge of the console. No, Mendez muttered. This is a promise. Inside the Situation Room, panic had already begun to ferment. Comms officers shouted over each other. Data feeds jittered with red tags and threat vectors. The global defense net had just flagged the entire Drexery presence as extinction-class. Code black. Across the globe, bunkers sealed, orbital cannons powered up, futile as they were. Earth hadn't seen war in decades. Not on this scale. The Drexery ships didn't jam comms, didn't hide. They wanted to be seen. To be feared. And it worked. Put me through to the Concord, President Hoshino barked. They have to step in. This violates every non-aggression charter. No response, came the grim reply. They've gone dark on all Terran channels. Typical. The Concord had always treated humanity like a pet lizard. they weren't sure would live through the weekend. Useful, amusing, but disposable. And now the apex had been insulted, and no one wanted to be caught standing next to the punchline on a low-orbit observatory. Ex-Marine Celine Voss watched the incoming data feeds with the composure of someone who'd once detonated a fusion charge while standing on it. The Drexari weren't bluffing, that was the worst part. If they wanted to glass the planet, they would have done it already, but they hadn't. They were waiting. Why? She reviewed the intercepted Drexari war chants broadcast from their flagship, ancient ritual dialect, half poem, half death threat. She ran it through a translator grid, added some pattern analysis, then leaned back as the screen translated. Blood awakened, blood ignored flesh, that taunts shall bleed once more if prey dares. Bark where teeth should close, let predator see what madness grows. Selena's breath caught. This wasn't war. Not yet, it was a hunt. Someone had triggered a Drexari combat rite, a blood test passed down for millennia, reserved only for species they considered worth the pain. Her holopad buzzed. Private message encrypted. From Ambassador Rourke. Subject: I might have screwed up. Message: you up for something stupid? Back at Earth Defense Command. The first visual feed from the Drexari flagship finally resolved. It wasn't a message. It was footage, grainy but clear. A human team. Selene recognized one of the faces. Her own. She froze. What is this? General Mendez asked. Leaning in, Rourke's voice came through a secure uplink. They're not here to wipe us out. Yet they're waiting to see if we'll play their game. What game? Blood honor. The Drexari think we challenged them. You did challenge them. I tossed a peanut at the worm. Yeah. Anyway, Rourke cut in, calm as ever. We have 72 hours to respond. Either we send someone to represent humanity in ritual combat, or they burn us down to make a point. Mendez paled. We don't have a champion. We don't even do ritual combat. Rourke smirked through the halley. No, but we have Voss stared at her reflection in the ship's viewport. Behind her the Earth turned slowly. Above it, death waited, and in her chest, not fear, anticipation. The cargo hauler, Dust Widow, was never meant for stealth runs. She wheezed through micrometeor fields like a drunk beetle on fire. Her hull bore carbon scoring from a dozen shady dockings, and her fusion lines stuttered like a smoker's cough. Perfect. Cover. Inside, ex-Marine Celine Voss crouched next to a power junction, rewiring a heat signature diffuser with a melted spoon and her last nerve. Her team for Terrans, handpicked for being crazy enough to say yes, were crammed into the shadows of the cargo bay, bracing as the ship skidded along the edge of the Drexari no-fly zone. Shields down to 11%, muttered Vance, her tech eyes glued to the flickering readout. We so much as fart in the wrong direction and they'll vaporize us. Then hold your breath, Celine shot back. Teeth clenched. Through the cockpit's warped viewplate, the Drexari blockade pulsed, like a sea of armored leviathans. The ships hung in perfect predatory formation, each one trained on Earth like a pack of wolves circling an injured deer. No chatter, no warnings, just silence and power. Celine's plan wasn't just mad, it was suicidal. Break through the blockade. Go with the Drexari flagship, walk right into the warhole and say, you called, we answered. She wasn't looking to win. She was looking to interrupt the narrative. We're in visual range, whispered Reyes, the sniper. How long till we die depends, Celine said, strapping on her reinforced pressure suit. On whether they're in the mood to kill or to watch. Flashback. 3 hours earlier, UN Orbital Command President Hoshino had paced in front of the strategy board like a lion in a trap. We can't sanction this, she barked. We can't just let 5 lunatics crash a meeting with a galactic war race. Rourke patched in via secure uplink, shrugged. You have a better idea. She's not even a diplomat. She doesn't need to be. She speaks fluent Drexari violence, loyalty, and defiance. Present Drexari flagship perimeter. Dust Widow breached the final scan net with a dive that nearly ripped her starboard wing off. A Drexari interceptor locked weapons. Heat signatures spiked. And then didn't fire. Celine stood at the open airlock, helmet under one arm, staring at the glowing maw of the Drexari docking bay. Guess they're watching, she murmured. The boarding ramp hissed open. Her boots hit the floor of the War Master's ship, stepping onto living metal that flexed and pulsed like sinew beneath steel. The air was hot, dense with pheromonal aggression. Drexari warriors lined the corridor, silent, weapons holstered but claws extended. This was a test. Celine walked forward, spine straight, pace measured, no bowing, no pleading. A single mistake, too much humility. Too much pride, and she'd end up mounted on a spike as a warning. At the end of the corridor, 2 doors unsealed. A massive chamber opened beyond, shaped like the inside of a beast's ribcage. At the center, War Master Krolver, his eyes like molten suns, waiting. Selene stepped into the light. "I'm Selene Voss," she said, voice echoing against bone and iron. "Humanity accepts your challenge." Krolver rose. "You bring no blade," he growled. "I bring something sharper," she replied. "What is that?" "A reason." Silence. Then the impossible. Krolver smiled. In orbit, Drexery ships, reoriented, not to fire but to watch. The humans had stepped into the hunt, and the galaxy leaned in. The floor pulsed beneath Selene's boots, like she was walking on the tongue of a god. She stood at the edge of the arena of Bonavast. Circular chamber deep within the Drexery flagship, carved from the fused skeletons of a dozen extinct apex predators. The ceiling arched high overhead like the inside of a cathedral forged for monsters. Massive vertebrae lined the walls like bleachers, and above them loomed silent Drexery war tribes, each marked with scar paint and bone sigils, their claws tapping the rhythm of death. Selene exhaled slowly. The air was thick with tension and blood, not metaphorical blood, real blood. It seeped from the porous bone floor like the arena was remembering every life it had swallowed. The smell was copper and fire from the shadows opposite her. A door, irised open, hissing steam. What stepped out wasn't just a warrior, it was a trial by violence, sculpted from rage and ritual. Harkonra, a Drexery executioner, chosen by the War Master himself. Armor of chainhorn plates, 7 feet tall, dual blades fused to his forearms like extensions of his soul. No words, no theatrics, just death, looming. A shriek echoed above. The crowd howled back. The rite had begun. Meanwhile, Earth High Command, Emergency War Room General Mendez stared at the broadcast on the holoscreen. Every nation on Earth had tuned in, whether they admitted it or not. It was being streamed through Drexery open channels. They wanted humanity to watch. President Hoshino stood behind him, pale but composed. "She actually went through with it," she whispered. Mendez didn't respond. He was watching Selena's eyes. She wasn't just surviving. She was studying. Arena Center seconds. Before impact, Selena rolled her shoulders and cracked her neck. Vance's voice buzzed in her ear. "Tight telemetry's holding. His right knee favors slightly slower rotation. Go for soft joint, left side. Copy that. He's using 2 fused monoblades. 1 clean feint and he'll split you in half. Don't test his timing." Selene smiled grimly. Wasn't planning on it. The Drexery executioner roared. No ceremonial bow, no count. He charged. A blur of silver and mass. Selene dove under the first, slashed just barely, the monoblade screeching over her back. She rolled, pivoted, slashed upward with her forearm blade grazing Harkon's ribs. Not a kill, but blood. The arena exploded with sound. The Drexery roared approval. Not for her, not yet, but for the violence. Selene stood, breath ragged. Her suit's smart polymer plates were already flashing amber across her ribs. He was faster than she'd calculated. The executioner spun with a reverse elbow. She ducked again, too slow, took the hit to her side. Her armor cracked. Pain lanced through her spine. Selene staggered. The Drexery moved in for the kill, but she smiled. The executioner froze for half a second, confused. Too late. She stepped inside his guard and drove her blade into the gap under his left armpit, into the exposed vascular ridge. Silence. The crowd didn't cheer, didn't move. They stared. Then the executioner collapsed dead before he hit the floor. High above, War Master Krolver stood and raised a claw. "The human has bled the fang. The human is worthy of the hunt." A single Drexery heartbeat later, the arena erupted in thunderous chants. Selene turned toward the balcony. Her voice was hoarse but defiant. "I didn't come to win your game," she said. "I came to change the rules." Selene Voss stood before the Council of Predators. Every Drexery warclan leader, 11 in total, sat upon raised thrones, carved from the remains of species they'd personally exterminated. Their armor hissed with internal pressure systems. Some bore scars, others mechanical limbs. All of them radiated one message: we do not lose. But here she was, scarred, bleeding, still standing, the first human to draw blood in the arena of bone, the first to survive it, the first to talk back. War Master Krolver paced behind her, claws tapping bone. "She bled our executioner," he growled to the others, with precision, not fury, not desperation, intent. A ripple of low growls passed through the council. One of the Mershal, Boneseer of the Third Brood, snorted. "A clever beast is still a beast. Let her fight again. A true test." Another Graxt of the Hollow Maw leaned forward. "No, we know her strength now. What we must test is her kind." Selena's jaw tightened. "You want another fight?" "No." Krolva said, stepping beside her. They want a hunt. Visual cut, Earth UN Orbital Command. Did she just agree to be hunted? President Hoshino exploded, slamming her hand on the console. Not exactly, Rourke said, arms crossed. She agreed to represent humanity in the hunt. Mendez blinked. As a hunter, right? A long pause, right? Back on the flagship Drexery, Sanctum Krova briefed Celine inside a chamber filled with holographic representations of alien worlds, each tagged with blood glyphs. They've selected a neutral moon, scroll for, no population, toxic air, unstable tectonics, and the rules. Celine asked, inspecting the planetary terrain models. You are the lone human representative. They will each send one hunter. Celine narrowed her eyes. So, 11, Apex Drexari against one of me. Krolva turned slowly. No, must survive long enough to make the kill. She blinked. Kill one of them. No, he said. Kill a beast. A new hologram flickered on Dot. It wasn't Drexari. It wasn't anything she'd ever seen. 12 feet tall, clawed from head to toe, a mouth that split open 4 ways. It moved like a glitching shadow, and even its holographic presence made skin crawl. This is the Shokorith, Krolva said, almost reverently. An ancient predator bred by the old brood, a thing that only lives to consume warriors. It has never been defeated. Not by Drexery, not by anything. Celine stared at the model. Why release it? Because, Krolva growled, the prey has teeth now. Let us see if they are sharp enough. Visual suspense. Scroll 4. The kill moon. Black clouds strangled the sky. Acid rain hissed against ash-covered plains. Lightning cracked sideways through the methane haze. Celine crouched atop a crumbling ridge. Her breath slow, her vision infrared filtered through her cracked visor. Motion at her 2 o'clock. A Drexery hunter. Fast, quiet. She ducked behind a fallen stone spire and pulled her combat blade. Not to attack, to wait. She didn't need to fight them. She needed to outlast them. But from deep within the ravines, something screeched, a sound like grinding bone and drowning lungs. The kind of sound that kills hope before it kills you. Celine flinched. So did the Drexery. The Shokorith had arrived. And suddenly, the hunters weren't watching the human anymore. They were backing toward her. One of them hissed. Blades raised. Human, he muttered, voice low and ragged. You have fought beasts before. Celine nodded slowly. The Drexery stared at the storm-blasted horizon, pupils dilating. Not like this. The sky above scroll 4 bled thunder. Bolts of green lightning carved jagged cracks through the atmosphere, casting brief, strobing flashes over the ash-choked terrain. The moon wasn't just hostile, it was an execution ground built by forgotten gods. Celine moved silently through the ravine, her oxygen running low, her armor pitted from acidic rain. The Drexery was somewhere nearby, stalking, hunting, waiting. She could hear their low-range vocal clicks reverberating through the fog. But it wasn't them she feared. It was the thing they'd unleashed, the Shokorith. Hook. Visual, a shadow in the lightning she caught. A glimpse of it during a lightning strike, just a silhouette on a ridgeline above her. 12 feet tall, gaunt, quadrupedal when stalking, bipedal when killing. Eyes like burning tar pits. She froze, and it froze too, like it sensed her through time. Through the bone. Then it was gone. Melted into the rock and dark. Elsewhere, Drexery Hunt Unit. 3rd, Fankraltesh. The hunter who had spoken to Celine earlier, moved in a triangular formation with 2 others. The Drexery were apex predators, for silence, precision, and brutality. But this moon made them flinch. Movement left. One of them whispered in their native tongue. They turned. A blur passed through the trees like a shadow slicing reality. The youngest Drexery Volok fired a plasma bolt that had vanished into the fog. Then, a sound, wet, final. Volok's head dropped clean off his shoulders. He didn't even scream. The Shokorith hadn't attacked with rage. It had removed a threat like a scalpel through silk. The others barely had time to react. Back with Celine. Crater. Hollow echo. Celine ducked into a crater surrounded by bone shards, some still steaming from decay. She patched her shoulder armor with a polymer seal, watching her oxygen gauge dip to 23%. Come on, she whispered. Come on, give me something. Her HUD flickered. Vance's uplink trying to break through Scroll's atmosphere. Then crackle. Lean, you copy. Partial. Data. We see it now. Don't engage. Repeat, don't. The signal died. Too late anyway. Something was moving toward her. Not the Shokorith. Lighter, slower, but not friendly. Celine raised her blade. A Drexery burst into view. His blade swinging, but he stumbled, gashing his leg on a spike of bone. Celine reacted, instinctively pulling him down and silencing. Him with a hand over his mouth, the Shockerith passed by not 6 meters away, cloaked in fog, its spine ridges flexing. It stopped, sniffed the air. Celine didn't breathe. The Drexery under her was trembling, not from pain, not from pure instinctual fear, but the beast kept moving. Then it vanished. Celine let go. The Drexery panted. "I should kill you," he said hoarsely. "You're welcome," she replied. He stood, limping. "You bled our executioner," he said. "Now, you pull our hunters out of the fire." She looked at him, starting to think we're on the same side. He didn't answer, but he didn't kill her either. Elsewhere, Drexery command ship Crover watched a kill feed silently. 7 hunters remained. The Shockerith had already claimed 4 without injury. Earth Command was watching too. The human representative wasn't running, wasn't hiding. She was adapting. Crover turned to the Boneseer. "She's not." Pray, the old Drexari gave a single nod. "No, she is Apex-born." Final scene, Kill Moon, Interior Ridge. Selene, the injured Drexery, and 2 others took shelter in a sulfur cave. For now, they weren't enemies. The Shockerith hunted all of them now. Selene activated a beacon spike. "I'm done surviving," she said. "What are you doing?" asked the Drexery. "Changing the rules again." She dropped a seismic charge into the ground. The ridge exploded, collapsing into a natural pit. A trap. If they couldn't outrun the monster, they'd drag it into their kill zone. It started with a vibration. Not from the storm above but beneath. A low, guttural rumble in the earth. Like the moon itself knew something unnatural had arrived and wanted it gone. Celine crouched near the edge of the ravine. Visor cracked. Eyes narrowed. The Drexery beside her, Kroltesh, and 2 others had stopped using words entirely. They communicated in sharp glances and hand signals now. Because if the Shockerith even suspected sound, you didn't scream, you vanished. Celine tapped her gauntlet, activating the last seismic charge. The kill zone was ready. Deep pit, ringed with plasma spikes, camouflaged by sulfur fog and bone fragments. Now all it needed was a guest hook. Visual predator steps into the trap, lightning crackled, and there it was, the Shockerith. Its body flowed down the crags like living smoke, limbs shifting from 2 to 4 legs fluidly. Its skin shimmered with something that rejected physics, like it absorbed light and heat and returned nothing. Its head turned. Slowly. Then, without warning, it moved. Celine didn't even see the transition from standing to charging. One hunter beside her screamed. A mistake. The Shockerith struck like lightning. In one blink, he was gone. Yanked upward, dripped into the fog, his scream cut off with a wet snap. Celine dove left, yelling, "Now!" Kroltesh detonated the first charge. The ridge exploded. Bone, ash, and sulfur launched skyward, and the Shockerith stumbled as the ground beneath it collapsed. Celine grabbed a mag hook, fired it into a stabilizer post, and swung down after it, blades drawn, heat signature locked. "Rourke," she gritted through her gums. "I hope you're getting this." "Earth Command, Situation Room, dear God," General Mendez whispered. The holofeed streamed real-time through Selena's visor. They watched her fall right into the pit with the most dangerous creature that Drexery had ever failed to kill. "President," Hoshino turned to Vance, voice brittle. "Is there any way she makes it out?" Vance stared at the feed, and for once, said nothing. Kill pit. In a Sokotha trap hadn't killed it. Of course it hadn't. The Shockerith rose from the pit like a demon born from fire, limbs shredded but regenerating in real time, molten ichor dripping from fractured bone. Celine landed behind it, activated the pulsenet emitter. Electric claws launched outward and snapped into place, forming a cage of crackling energy. Between the spike posts it hissed. No, it spoke. A gurgling, bone-grinding frequency that wasn't language, but invaded her mind. Unworthy, unclean. Silence. Celine gritted her teeth. Blood trailing from her ears. She charged anyway. Blades ignited superheated carbon edge. She ducked low, slashed across its knee joint. It shrieked, fluid sprayed. Behind her, Kroltesh leaped from a ledge, driving a spear into the thing's spine. The creature bucked. Energy walls flared. Celine rolled under a claw strike. Stabbed upward, pierced the underside of its throat. It kept coming. "You are echoes. I am the first hunt. Celine triggered her last trick, a gravcore spike, jamming it into the monster's abdomen. Light it. Kroltesh hit the detonator. Boom. The pit erupted in a blue-white nova. The Shockerith screamed a sound that fractured rocks and collapsed into the pit. Smoke. Silence. Celine gasped, dragging herself from the wreckage. It wasn't moving, and she was still alive. Visual cut. Drexery orbit. Command the Bone Seers watched in stunned silence. Va stood slowly. She brought it down. Graxt of the Hollow Maw exhaled. She brought it down with tactics, coordination, Sacrifice. She did what no Drexery has done in 10 blood cycles, murmured another. Krolver raised his voice. Not as prey, not as beast. He turned to the other warlords. She is Hunter. She is Apex. Final shot. Kill Moon Crater. Selene sat in the ash. Her armor cracked, blood drying on her cheek. Kroltesh limped beside her and dropped something in her lap. The shock. Reth's isolate black crystal, still pulsing faintly. Selene stared at it. Then looked up at the sky, because she knew this wasn't the end. It was the invitation. The chamber that once judged her stood silent, not in disdain, not in scorn, but in awe. Selene Voss entered wearing her scorched armor, carrying the Shokarith's obsidian eye in one hand, and a Drexery Warbanar gifted by Kroltesh in the other. The hunters who had once called her a primitive now stepped aside, because she didn't walk like prey anymore. She walked like consequence. Hook. Visual. The eye on the altar. She placed the Shokarith's eye on the ancient bone altar, its surface etched with the names of species that had once tried to challenge the Drexery. Now, under alien glyphs and faded carvings, a new name appeared, humanity, and beneath it, translated by the Drexery, in silence, the species that bites back. Flashback cut. UN Orbital Command. Earth General Mendez stared at the returning comms packet. Visual feed confirmed. Full planetary telemetry, victory data. 1 human, 7 Drexery allies, 1 apex predator. Kill. President Hoshino leaned forward. And what do the Drexari say now? Admiral Vance read the final line of the encrypted transmission aloud. We no longer hunt them. We hunt with them. Back on Drexari Prime, Aftermath Council debated for 1 night cycle. No blood was spilled, no challenges were made, because in the eyes of every warlord, Selene hadn't just survived their test, she'd reshaped it. She had done the one thing none of them expected. She had changed the very idea of strength, not just violence, not domination. Strategy, sacrifice, trust. And now humanity was no longer seen as unpredictable prey. They were the storm that moves with purpose. Visual cut. Battlefield. Corex Fringe World. Weeks later, Drexery drop pods fell from orbit, like meteors. But this time, not alone. Human drop pods followed sleek fast, in formation. For the first time in Drexery war history, a mixed-unit assault force landed on a Corex warworld. Human commandos and Drexery hunters moved together, covering each other's blind spots, sharing data, synchronizing tactics. At their head, Captain Selene Voss, dual insignias on her chestplate, humanity's eagle. And the Drexery warfang enemies, scattered because now, the galaxy whispered a new kind of fear. The humans made the predators hesitate. Dialogue cut. Kroltesh 2. Selene Hay handed her a drinking horn carved from his first kill. You taught us something our bloodlines forgot, he growled. Selene raised an eyebrow. What's that? That the deadliest apex is the one who remembers what it means to bleed. They drank as warriors, not as enemies. Emotional epilogue. Earth Memorial. Gardena bronze statue stood under a crystalline dome, surrounded by names of the fallen from the first contact disasters. The statue, Selene Voss, kneeling, blade down, helmet off. Not as a conqueror, but as a survivor who didn't flinch. Schoolchildren passed by on hovertrams, eyes wide as instructors recited the day when humanity stopped being underestimated and became the balance keepers of a galaxy filled with monsters. Final visual. Unknown region. Classified recording. A probe drifted through dark space. It captured only one signal, not from the Corax, not from the Drexery, but from something else. A voice, ancient and layered, rasped in the void. Apex has awoken, but Apex draws attention. The first one stir. Static swallowed the rest. The transmission ended.